This open forum is to ask a really important question and to get you to reconsider a very common term. It's a buzzword. You hear it everywhere. You probably hear it in the news. You probably hear it in class. You probably hear it amongst your friends. And when people use this word, they feel really good. They're like, oh, I'm doing this. But is it enough? Awareness, buzzword. You hear awareness all the time now. And people feel really good about creating awareness. Oh, I'm creating awareness. It's almost as though using that term, creating awareness, is enough. But is it? I'm here to argue that it's not. That creating awareness is not enough. And this is one of the most common ways that people create awareness. And so for those of you I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Leslie Karen Hammond. I am a startup coordinator and a facilitator for the World Academy for the Future of Women. My relationship with World Academy began about a year ago. It's been a love affair ever since. And now I do everything I can to spend as much time with World Academy as possible because the mission is so close to my heart. And having the privilege to see the transformation in women, not just here in Bangladesh, but in Nepal and in China. I feel such an honor to be trusted and in the presence of such amazing women who have the courage to stand up and speak up for what they believe in, and to not just understand and not just create awareness for things like gender equality, equal rights, and social justice, but also to be in the presence of women willing to do something about it. So thank you for that. Okay, so creating awareness, what does that really do? What do you believe creating awareness does? I'm curious. What do you believe creating awareness does?
For me, the awareness helps me to remove the blind spots, is to make me more conscious of what is happening or how am I approaching or taking that perspective in.
Thank you. Being more conscious. Yes. Who else? What does creating awareness mean to you?
Like socially accepting the facts, or like so that people gets aware to those facts about it and they accept it and they understand the values. So it can be autism awareness as well, that those are normal like us and we should not look with a different perspective, but rather accept the differences and respect the values.
Okay, thank you. Who else? What does creating awareness mean to you? Helping someone see a different point of view? Absolutely. But is it enough? Just presenting a different point of view. Next slide, please. This is one person's perspective on why creating awareness isn't enough. Very temporary. It's very temporary. How can you measure creating awareness? We've talked about this a lot in World Academy. How do you measure? And in the beginning, when you're not used to measuring the success of something, it can be very confusing. And this is one of the most complex things to measure. How can you know that you've created awareness? What changes in a classroom? What changes in a village? What changes in a city when you create awareness? I'm curious. What changes? How do you know that you've created awareness anywhere?
I'll know that after I've seen people doing that I aware them about. But if they doesn't do anything about that, then I want to know that it's working or not.
You just basically finished the whole talk for me. Thank you. Awareness, like helping someone become aware of something, maybe piques their interest, opens their eyes for a couple of minutes. But unless you see them doing something, awareness, it's like the leaves coming off of this tree. It's so temporary. You can get somebody really excited and aware of something, and then they walk out the door of open forum, and maybe they think, oh, yeah, that creating awareness talk, that was interesting. And then they get distracted by a friend, or something happens, and then where does that awareness go? Long gone. And then maybe they attend another talk, or maybe they see something on social media, and then, oh yes, I'm aware. And then they get distracted again. And then what happens again? There it goes. Awareness, it is so finite. It is so limited that if your only goal is to create awareness, then I invite you to rethink your objective. Rethink what you really want. And please understand, the creating of the awareness, it's important. It's the first piece. Nothing happens without creating the awareness. But the thing to know is there needs to be action that follows it up afterwards, or I guarantee this is the outcome. When you first got into World Academy, maybe you went home and you started sharing stories with your parents about the things you were learning and you were excited. You created some awareness of World Academy. And when you heard the difference between the girl you were before you came in World Academy and the woman that you now are in the Academy, did your parents like automatically start to treat you differently, like this woman you said you were? No, it takes a little time, and it takes, what does it take? What do you have to show them in order to get them to understand you're a different person? Actions. Exactly. Exactly. It requires action. So just thought is not enough. Awareness without action is useless. It's useless. So I invite you to pay attention now to how many times in a day that you hear someone talk about create awareness. We're building awareness around this, and you may hear that from NGOs like all the time. You may hear it from different clubs even here on campus. Oh, we're creating awareness. And they feel that that's enough, something to feel good about. Maybe they're going to report, oh, I created awareness. Okay, so what happened? What happened after you created awareness? But here's the thing about the next step. It takes courage. Because a lot of times, this is what we do when we create awareness. Boy, I sure hope they remember what we talked about. I sure hope they sign up for something. I sure hope. Hope is a term that you may hear on a regular basis. It's not right or wrong. This is one person's perspective on the word. Hope has done many things for many people over time, and for some, hope works. I happen to have a different definition and believe hope is one way to begin a process. But if everyone hopes, or we pray, that something will change, is that enough? Have you ever noticed how people tend to pray when something goes really wrong?
Yeah.
If you get me out of this, I promise, I swear I will never do that again. And then what usually happens like 3 months later? I swear! I've done it. That's why I can laugh at it, because I've been there. I've done that. And I'm not saying that prayer is a bad thing. Prayer is a wonderful thing. It can bring peace. It can do so much. But praying alone, hoping alone, is it enough? Do you know people that follow either prayer and hope and then don't do anything else? They believe that's enough?
Yes.
And do these people that you've noticed, are they ever disappointed? Do they ever complain?
Yes.
Huge difference between influencing change through hope or through prayer, and then through action. Because when you hope or you pray for something to change and you're not creating an action to support it, it's like just letting the past keep going. It's an invitation to keep the past in front of you. So if your choice to create a change in your life is just through hoping things will change or praying that things will change, and you're not willing to take an action or be responsible for that change, then I ask you from the heart, is that the future you want to create for yourself? Action is required. And it's not easy to take the action. It's a lot easier to just watch from the sidelines and say, somebody else will take care of that. Or you've already got a lot going on, and so to take on one more thing, it's too much. But one saying from World Academy, nothing changes if...
Nothing changes.
Exactly. We all have a past, but do we want that to be the future for us? Do we want that to be the future for the next generation? Really?
No.
I believe every generation wants something more for the next, whether it's their children or their nieces or their nephews. And creating an awareness for change just isn't enough. I love this word. I trust that each of you will take something away from this open forum today where you'll consider an action. That moving forward, every time you hear the word awareness, if it's a sister in the World Academy, you might say something like, oh, that's interesting, but what do you plan to do about it? And then when you get an answer, then ask, well, then how do you expect things to change? I trust, just like the founder, Jerry Uberly, trusts that social justice is a possibility. Gender equality is a possibility. We're not attaching a time frame to it. We're not believing that next week it will happen. We understand it takes time. We know it takes time, but we trust that it will happen. Trusting is so important, and I imagine that each of you trust in your higher power, You trust that you are protected. You trust that your family loves you. There's so many things you do based on trust. Even you come into the classroom of the World Academy because you trust it's a safe place to be. You express your opinions. You share things from the heart because you trust that you'll get supported. You're not hoping. Would you come into a coaching circle with the thought, well, I really hope they don't make fun of me, or I really hope they don't judge me? Does that ever enter your mind? No, it's trust. So I ask you to apply that trust to the things that you want to make change in the world with. Trust that through your actions, the change will occur. A lot of times, the actions that we take, we can't see the result. Things happen all the time where we'll never see what the outcome is. We'll never know how we influence someone. But if we always behave with honesty, if we act with integrity, and we trust that a difference will be made, then a difference will be. And some of us, self-included, have gone through phases of life not trusting. Because trust is one of the easiest things to lose and the hardest thing to gain. How many of you have ever lost trust in someone? Yeah, exactly. And is it easy for that trust to be rebuilt?
No.
Are there occasions when that trust isn't rebuilt? Because someone can say, oh, trust, oh, you can trust me. And if someone feels the need to say that, that should be a little red flag that goes off. Anybody that feels the need to declare that, well, I'm just saying, something to consider. So I really invite you to start trusting, and perhaps more deeply, that what you're doing in the World Academy is going to create and influence larger change than you can even imagine at this moment. Larger, more powerful change than you can imagine in this moment. So if you consider, just for a minute, what you'd like to see change in ULab. ULab is a fantastic place. But there's always things that we would love to see happen. We would love to see transform, just like we transform. We want to see that in most places, where we are. So imagine the vision that you're holding for the transformation in Bangladesh. What you can see women doing in 20 years. What you can see women doing in 30 years, in 40 years. Would your behavior be slightly different if you trusted that change was coming? Instead of, oh, I hope it happens. I hope so. And have you ever heard someone say, well, I hope you feel better? It's a common response. Well, gee, I sure hope they get over that. Well, does it sound more powerful if you were to say, I trust you'll feel better soon?
So much powerful.
Huge difference. Just interchanging those two little words make.
I feel more responsible and accountable to myself every time I use the word trust.
Absolutely. Accountable, that's a huge piece. Because it's almost like when we trust, we're just letting it go, and we're like, yeah, there's no involvement, there's no skin in the game. Well, I hope, so somebody else will take care of it. I hope. I trust. Sounds like there's action behind it. It sounds like, it feels like, it looks like something will shift. Trust, it's huge. And there'll be times in your World Academy journey where you're going to question yourself, and you might not trust yourself to do something appropriately. Like, especially when it comes to the leadership roles. Oh, I don't have the experience, or I haven't done this before. I don't know if I trust myself to do it. I don't know if I trust myself to make the right decision. Well, that's when you look at a World Academy sister. And that's when, as an Academy sister, it's your responsibility to say to your fellow leader, you've got this. I know you've got this. I believe in you. I trust you'll make the right choice. Instead of, well, I sure hope she makes the right choice. And if somebody is within earshot and they hear that, what kind of influence do you think that will have on their self-esteem and their confidence? So the thing, leadership is a culmination of lots of little tiny actions. Integrity is what you do when no one's looking. It's all of those little things. Next slide. So when you trust, there needs to be this belief, a very firm belief that even if you can't see the result, even if you can't imagine the result, and you can call it faith instead if you prefer. I like the word trust better. But there's so much that's not clear. So we see a lot of clarity here, clarity in the face, and all the things going through this individual's mind, who's to say what it is. But if you trust without question, then you're much more likely to take an action. You're much more likely to get a result. You can trust that something will happen favorably. You can trust there'll be a positive result without knowing exactly what the result will be. Sometimes that's scary. I don't know what's going to happen. I trust it'll be wonderful. Next slide. These are people that trusted in World Academy. So you all know who this is. And this is Badur. He is the principal of Orchid International College in Nepal, who brought a World Academy to his school. And you know who this is. This is Danielle Hampson. She heads up World Academy Radio, and she's the one that sets up our Facebook groups and handles a lot of the beginning of the social media stuff over in America. And these people, without any idea how World Academy would go in Bangladesh or in Nepal, had a vision. We trusted that World Academy would come to these countries. This is in China, by the way. So we trusted that each of these countries was ready for World Academy. We trusted that women would be ready to step up, that women would be willing to make the commitment. We trusted without knowing a lot of things. But because there was that trust, there were actions that were taken with the belief that we will reach that objective. There was never any question in our minds that an academy would go into these countries, would be successful, and would thrive. If we went into this partnership believing, oh, we sure hope it works. We sure hope people come to World Academy. Would it be a completely successful venture? And success, that we could spend a whole hour talking about success, and what that means. But there was trust on the part of all parties in bringing a vision to fruition. I invite you to explore the oath with me from a different perspective. I was so excited about this earlier today, I changed my PPT. So for those of you that the concept of World Academy is new, the World Academy is a bold and daring leadership program. The World Academy is committed to social justice, to gender equality, to equal rights, because a child doesn't need to die every 5 seconds from hunger. Over 800 women every day do not need to die because of complications in childbirth. Wouldn't it be amazing if there were laws in every country against domestic violence? The World Academy trusts that these things are attainable. So as a member of the World Academy for the Future of Women, we are committed to the advancement and acceleration of women's leadership worldwide. Not just in Magic Room 405, not just in ULab, not just in Hall 502 at Orchid International College, not just at SIAS International University in China, worldwide. I invite you to really consider what that means. Worldwide. So when a child is 5 years old, they have a vision of the world that is so big. And then as that child comes into adolescence, maybe a 14-year-old has a vision of the world. It's a little bit bigger. At 21, it's a little bit bigger. 35, it gets a little bit bigger. As you go on the internet and you explore things, the world gets a little bit bigger. But I invite you to truly imagine the concept of worldwide. Not everyone is ready for World Academy. We can create all the awareness we want to around World Academy, but you've seen what just creating awareness does. Awareness isn't enough. I can invite you to consider women's leadership worldwide. And it may be difficult to wrap your thoughts around because maybe for some of you, you've never gone beyond the boundary of Bangladesh. So maybe your worldwide for you is just beyond the borders of Bangladesh, and that's okay. But we invite you to open your eyes wider, to envision what global change really could be. The reason I put this on here, so this is Janice. She was a student director in China last year. And this wasn't planned, but she was giving a talk, and I saw that the word future from the projector was shining on her forehead. I was like, wow, that is so cool. I just have to take a picture of that. It wasn't planned. This woman is so committed to World Academy. It's amazing. I would trust that if the opportunity is presented to you to go to China and experience World Academy there, that you would do everything in your power to go. It's an amazing experience. And so Janice, even though she has some health concerns, she would never tell you that. You could never tell by her performance. You could never tell by her commitment that she doesn't have as much energy as the next woman her age. But she is so committed to World Academy. I would venture to say she might be part of World Academy 15 hours a week or more, maybe even 20. It's a little different when you live on campus. So at CIAS, everyone lives on campus, so there isn't that element of travel that you have here. So that way it makes it easier. They just need to be in dorms by 10:30 in China. So it's a little bit different. But the advancement and acceleration of women's leadership worldwide. Can you imagine if each of you had the ability to influence 5 women to become leaders? And then if each of those 5 women had the ability to influence 5 more. And that's how you start a movement. That's how you create that change. It's not just building awareness, like, oh, let me make 5 women aware of World Academy. Bring them to an open forum. Share the stories of transformation. Ask them what they've noticed in you. That's living proof. Next slide. Please consider this. Really consider it. We use maybe 10% of the brain, so maybe that 10% might be this. So can you imagine being empowered through the discovery of your passion, your purpose, and your path to success? What else might open up? What does it mean to be empowered? What does it mean to be empowered? And is there translation in Bangla for that word, empower or empowered? Is there a Bangla word for that?
You do actually, but I don't remember.
Does anyone remember the word for empower or empowerment in Bangla?
Because we have a translation that the communication did, so they do have it.
Ooh, I want to hear what that word is. Well, so to you, what does it mean to be empowered? What does that mean? To be empowered, we'll just take it for the first part. To be empowered through the discovery of your passion. Maybe to learn about what's important to you. How many of you know what you want to do for the rest of your life? So maybe this first section of the oath, being empowered about the discovery of your passion, maybe you're still working on that. And that's fine. I was 35 before I realized exactly what that was. If you figure it out in your 20s, you're so far ahead of the game. So far. You have me beat by like 30 years. But how about being empowered through the discovery of your purpose? Have any of you felt like, since you've been in World Academy, that maybe part of your purpose is to lead? To influence change by leading? It's amazing what can be revealed and what you can discover when you trust, not hope, but when you trust that some kind of positive action, some kind of transformation will come out of something. When you can trust yourself to step forward, to speak up to the man who is sitting in the seats on a bus that are designated for a woman. When you can trust your voice to be strong enough and not shake when you go up to him and say, excuse me, those seats are for women. There's a woman right over here who needs a seat. When you can trust that you have the courage, you have the strength to speak up when it's necessary. Now, for those of you that are still trying to figure out what your purpose is, it's okay. We don't all know what it is right away. Then if you're still working on this one, then I invite you to really strongly embrace the last one. Being empowered through the discovery of your path to success. Has the World Academy changed the way you see your path to success now? A little bit?
Yes.
How? How has that changed?
I'm able to measure my success now every day.
Here, oh, I want to hear this louder.
So in everyday life, even by my little actions, whenever I'm doing something, I'm able to measure it because I have learned that skill. How can I measure? If something is not measurable, that means I need to work on that so that I can measure that. So.
Who else? Path to success. Has that definition changed for you? Did you even think about what your path to success was before? Did that ever occur before? Like what is your path to success? Sometimes people might use that word hope. Well, I sure hope whatever I'm supposed to do for the rest of my life turns up. I sure hope I see the sign instead of trusting. But your path to success is many different things. Being honest with yourself. It's acting with integrity. It's knowing that you have a voice and you have a choice. It's all of those things that you read in the operating principles and in the requirements and in the oath. It's in all of those things. Whenever you question what your path to success is, you can think about all of the times when things didn't go the way you wanted them to. And then consider the value in that. The path that I've walked to get here today has got all kinds of failures on it. Many, many different failures. But because I was able to learn from them, because I was able to pull a lesson from that, and then move forward and not let it just ruin me if it didn't go well, that was empowerment along the path to success. And in your leadership journey, I promise there will always be something where you think, oh, I cannot believe I did that. I hope nobody was really paying attention. And then somebody goes and posts it on social media. What a great friend, huh? Then it's out there for the whole world to see. But if you can find something powerful in it, if you can trust that you'll take something from it and use it for what's coming next, that shifts the whole perspective. Shifts the whole entire perspective. So I invite you to constantly be aware and conscious of this path to success. So when I said aware, like be aware of the path to success, do something to measure it. Like maybe every day, at the end of the day, make a note. Ooh, what did I do today that I'm really proud of? What did I do today that brings me one step closer to where I want to be? That's one of the really exciting things about Module 3. I can't tell you how excited I am about Module 3 because it's about goals and making plans. I will tell you, no plan will ever go as you expect. But plans are wonderful. And I have to tell you, I just learned yesterday that there is a superstition in this culture not to make plans too far ahead. I didn't know that until yesterday, and I was like, oh, that would have made a whole lot of sense if maybe if I knew that earlier. Like that people don't make vacations months in advance because something could go wrong. I could die.
Too much laughter.
I don't know if it will work out. Maybe I don't buy that airline ticket. So it just occurred to me to ask this question. If there's that much fear and superstition, is there a lot of life insurance policies? No. Oh, so this could be a great place for somebody that sells life insurance to come. Nobody wants to make plans because they're so worried about the future. Instead of trusting that they'll make it on that vacation, instead of trusting the world will still be as they know it, or even different and transformed. So I haven't figured out how to bring that into the academy facilitation yet, but I thought that was a fascinating fact that I found out by accident. Okay, next slide, please. So I invite you to be courageous and act with honesty and integrity. Every time that you take an action where you're not sure that the next step is going to be there, yes, it takes courage to move forward, but it also takes a lot of courage to act with honesty. To say, okay, I didn't do what I committed to do. And I think one of the places that we're most difficult with ourselves on is that time analysis sheet that you're all in love with. And in fact, it just came up in coaching today where someone had said, well, what do I do if I can't do this? And I said, well, just change the plan. And I got one of these looks. Really? It's that simple? Just change the plan? Why didn't I think of that? But acting, with honesty is realizing when you can't keep a commitment and just saying so. Not, oh, I really hope they'll understand, or I hope they won't notice. Maybe they won't ask me. Instead of saying, okay, Sabina, I cannot keep this commitment to you on Friday at 4 p.m. I need to reschedule. And for me to be within integrity, I would do that on Thursday. Or maybe I would do it on Friday early in the morning instead of doing it at 3:57. Like 3 minutes before I was supposed to meet you. But one of the things about leadership, and this is, I believe, one of the things that catches some people with World Academy off guard, is they don't really understand what it means to fully act with honesty and integrity. And that works two ways. So you've got the honesty and the integrity that happens out here, the things that you say to others, the truth you tell to others. But the one thing that a lot of people don't consider is that truth they tell to themselves. And I don't know about you, but when learning the oath, when living the oath, that was one of the biggest ahas. Where am I out of integrity for myself? And that may be one of the places where whenever you notice someone else who's not in integrity in their outer lives, then you can only imagine that they aren't living within integrity in their own life. And instead of judging someone, have compassion. Because maybe that's a really difficult thing for them to do. Maybe they've not had an example of how to behave, how to be honest, even when it's difficult, how to have integrity, even when the consequences are uncomfortable. Because we're setting an example. Take a look at attendance. Prime example of acting with integrity on the on the attendance sheets. There are so many places that you can practice integrity day in and day out. Everything from your prayers that you do in the morning. If you skip one, you might feel out of integrity and out of balance. off center. That right there is a very important commitment that you keep to yourself, that you do to stay within integrity. Whenever you give your word to someone that you'll do something, keeping that word. Or if you can't keep the word, then say, okay, I need to change the plan. And just be honest, be truthful. Be responsible for yourself. But this trust, this courageousness is something that will always be challenged in you, I promise. It doesn't matter how confident you get, how fabulous a job that you've done with something, there'll be the next thing. And then the next thing. And just when you think you've mastered something, along comes another opportunity. And then, you know, your foot might be shaking. Oh, I'm not sure. Sometimes leadership can feel like you're walking around with a blindfold. You're trusting that you have the skill, you have the ability, you have the support to do what you need to do. Next slide. This is sand, just in case you weren't sure. So going beyond personal and geographic boundaries. Personal boundary for someone giving a talk could be this square tile. A personal boundary could be a chair. A personal boundary could be expressing emotion. Oh, I don't do that. Crossing a personal boundary is something that leadership requires every day. It doesn't mean giving up the non-negotiables. So we talked about non-negotiables in class. So that doesn't mean giving up a non-negotiable, but it means challenging yourself to do something that's a little uncomfortable. Because if we stayed in our comfort zones, life would get boring pretty quickly. If I stayed in my comfort zone, I would have never gotten on a plane. I would have, so many things I wouldn't have jumped out of planes on purpose if I didn't want to go beyond, you know, that comfort zone. So I promise you, no matter how comfortable you are with what you're doing right now, there's a boundary that you're afraid to cross. So I challenge you to brush the sand, make it nice and smooth, and then reach forward just a little bit more. Build your courage up to get to that boundary, and then don't just gingerly step over it, but get a running start and jump over it. Just go for it, because the other side of this boundary, there's so many wonderful, exciting, amazing things waiting for you. And every time that you cross this boundary, so it's a personal boundary, so it's important that you don't disrespect someone else in the process. But just because you have a personal boundary doesn't mean that someone else has the same boundary. You may have common boundaries, but you also may have some very different ones. Geographic boundaries, that can be in here. I can't tell you how many women I've met over the years that have boundaries here that physically you can't see them anywhere, but psychologically they have so many. And then here's the tricky part: when you have these boundaries and you don't tell anyone, then people are crossing your boundary all the time. if you're not making it known, if you're not sharing what you will and won't tolerate. So I have a question. Actually, no, this is more homework. So what kind of a boundary are you keeping a secret? What kind of a boundary are you keeping a secret? That it's time to share it. Because you all have one, I'm certain of it. This might be one of those things where you expect someone to read your mind. Oh, they know me. They know this isn't acceptable. I mean, you may have never told them, but you're like, oh, they know. I'm sure they know. And then you never tell them, and then something happens, and then you get upset, and they're confused. They can't figure out why you're so angry or why you're so hurt. I invite you all, after you finish writing that down, take another moment. I invite you to stand up for a second. We have a little bit of room, so like go in the middle or come here to the front. I want everybody to stand up where you have a little bit of space in front of you. Everybody. It'd be a good exercise in standing up. And yeah, don't have anything in your hand. So give yourself like 12 inches in front of you. Make space. Okay, you need to be able to move 12 inches. So come on out. We've got lots of space here. We've got space here. So make sure you've got 12 inches in front of you. You need to be able to move your whole body 12 inches. So being in a row of chairs won't work. So come on out. We got more room. Lots of room. Now you need to be able to move your whole body. All right, so I invite you to take a moment and consider a boundary, a personal boundary that you're not sure you're ready to cross yet. Maybe it's a conversation. Maybe it is, well, usually they start with conversations. A lot of times we don't want to have these conversations. We don't want to say to someone that they've hurt us. We don't want to say to someone they've disappointed us. We don't want to say something that could be hurtful to another person. But as we talked about non-negotiables in class, self-respect was really high on that list. So consider a boundary that you have yet to cross. And then I would love for you to imagine right here, right now, you're going to practice crossing it. So it's less scary when you're in this room of World Academy members, and when it's less scary because the thing that you need to face, it's not right here in front of you. Imaginarily, maybe it is. But what's it like? I know I can do this. I trust I can do this. Ah. Practice crossing that boundary. What is it for you? I know you've got one. I know you've got one. Find that courage inside of you that's had enough. Consider that boundary and take a step. Cross it. I know you can. This line in the sand has been there long enough. What are you tired of tolerating?
I want to travel alone.
Well, and that's wonderful. You're welcome to share, not necessary, but whatever boundary that you feel you're having a hard time crossing, Take the step now. Imagine that you're crossing it. And then after you've crossed it, I want to hear how it feels. Imagine crossing that boundary. Putting something behind you so that you can create the future you want. Because you made a claim in the oath. Every day you're in class, you repeat this line of the oath. I will go beyond my personal and geographic boundaries. Well, here's a chance. Take the step, and you may need more room. Take the step.
What is? I just did. Was fast.
And it looked like it wasn't that painful.
I was just holding myself.
Okay, one down. How many more do we have to go? Cross! Cross! And let's cheer for each woman that does. Woo! Cross that boundary. What do you want to leave behind? Cross it. Woo! Okay, come on. Cross it like you mean it. Cross it like you mean it. This is a life-changing opportunity to cross a boundary. I'm guessing that when you really cross it, you're not going to be as casual. You'll be more like, yes! I just did this! And then you reach out to your friends and you say, you're never going to believe what I just did. Wow, this was so awesome and so amazing. Turn around and cross it again. Do so with more feeling, like more excitement. Like when you really cross something, you put something behind you. How amazing does that feel? It's not silly, it's empowering.
I had goosebumps. I felt that I did it.
So keep practicing. Enough! You draw lines in front of you all the time. I'm inviting you to cross another boundary. Jump if you want to. Get a running start if you want to. It seems silly, but you're getting your body in the habit of crossing that boundary. You're getting used to it. Oh, this might not be easy, but look at that. I did it. I'm still alive. Look at that. The world didn't come to an end. Okay, do it again. Cross the boundary. Woo! I know it seems silly, but consider it as progress.
Yeah, we did. Just a few weeks back, I had this thing, like my parents didn't allow me to go with my friends or family somewhere, and they invited me. So this thing is really making me go back in my mind. Like, I wish I met you a week ago.
Well, here's the thing: when you cross boundaries, is that it's so important to make sure that you are respectful. The key is you can go after what you want when you don't deprive someone else of getting what they want. Thank you. You can go ahead and sit down. I challenge you to go beyond a personal and geographic boundary every day. And it could be just a little teeny tiny boundary. It could be even the smallest thing that will have the largest